oh, welcome back. It's like, no. You don't welcome me back after I identify myself. You welcome me back before I had to put that
in. Hello and welcome to episode 111 of Rockstar CMO FM. The M is for marketing and the F is well, you decide. As you're probably wondering, does the world need another effing marketing podcast? I'm your host, Ian Truscott. I'm no rock star, but I've picked up a thing or two over my 25-year career from techie to CMO, and each week I chat to the true rock stars, my fabulous guests and chums, and hopefully share some marketing street knowledge that will inspire the Rockstar CMO in you. Come and say hello. We are Rockstar CMO on Twitter and LinkedIn, and proud members of the Marketing Podcast Network. This episode was recorded on Friday, April the 22nd. I hope you've had a good week and you are well, safe, and staying as sane as you feel you need to be. This week, Jeff Clark has read an article in a magazine. I chat with brand marketing expert Joe Jansen. We wind down the week in the Rockstar CMO virtual bar with Robert Rose for a cocktail and a marketing thought. But first, we need to pay the bar tab. I'll be back in a moment.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Christy Heiler hosts a fantastic podcast called Own It. Christy, tell us more about the show.
Own It is all about celebrating women and non-binary advertising agency owners. We talk about buying out of the Boys Club of Advertising because less than 1% of ad agencies are owned by women.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find the podcast at untilyouownit.com. We're also on the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net. And of course, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe.
On to our first segment with my chum, Jeff Clark, a sought-after marketing strategy advisor and former Serious Decisions Forrester Research Director. This week, inspired by a magazine article, we dive back into storytelling, the third of our Rockstar CMO effing marketing fundamentals, and wonder if the robots can help. Welcome back, Jeff, to Rockstar CMO FM. How are you, my friend?
I am doing very well. Very well. Beautiful day here in central Massachusetts.
That's beautiful. I got told off this week by a salesperson that I was chatting to in my day job. And he was saying that he was always taught never to talk about the weather with a prospect, always ask them something else, get them more engaged. So maybe our obsession with the weather is a bit outdated.
Well, I just figure you figure you're English, and so weather obsession is just part of the national character.
Absolutely. Well, we've had a lovely week here. A bit grey today, but I understand that we're in for a nice dry weekend, which will drag me outside to the garden. So yes, that's the weather update. But
awesome. and then maybe we should shift into gardening update because my wife's starting to plant her vegetable garden, so we can get into. What are you planting? What are you harvesting?
I think that might be a totally different podcast, but I'm game.
It could be. Yeah.
Let's see if a listener gets in touch and requests another effing garden podcast.
The effing fundamentals of gardening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
good soil.
I don't plant vegetables. I've got some little garden plants that I'm growing out in order to plant them out when the weather gets better and when they get healthier. So yes, lots to do. And so let's get to the topic of our effing marketing fundamentals. Back to marketing away from gardening.
Yes,
where we do nurture things in both places, don't we? Do you like the way I did that? And I know that this week you've been thinking about our third effing marketing fundamental, which we were talking about last week too. But you've got a bit more thought on this. And having picked up an article about AI, which is something we last year talked about in the in our One Hit Wonder or Wonderwall series. I don't think we chucked it in the swimming pool.
We did not chuck it in. It's definitely yes. We saved ourselves the embarrassment of saying that it was a one-hit wonder.
So AI. What say you, Jeff?
Well, so the interesting thing I was going to read the article anyway. It came out in the Sunday New York Times of last Sunday, whatever that date was. Here we are on April 22nd. And then old colleague of mine at Forrester, Ian Bruce, popped a little note on LinkedIn sharing the article and saying, if writing is part of your professional world, pay attention. Yeah. So, you get a little shudder and it's like, oh, I guess I should pay attention. The article is called AI is Mastering Language. Should we trust what it says? And I'm sure you'll provide a link to it. It's by Stephen Johnson, who's written a dozen books on science, technology, personal experience, and as I was reading through it, I was thinking about the fact that it's like AI is entering so much of our regular communications. Like when you're in Gmail and you're writing a sentence, and it'll throw the next phrase out at you, or you're in a community or you're in a chat session, and it's like that what's responding to you is some form of AI that's been programmed to discuss whatever, support questions or to answer marketing or to help to navigate you to the right website. And I'm also I joined this online network called Alignable. It's here in the U.S. I'm not sure how far outside the U.S. it is, but it has this nasty feature of sending me emails, with full sentences from a person who is obviously a fake person. Like Shane from Alignable said, connect with Jenny to request a recommendation. Well, I already know Jenny, and actually I think you know Jenny. And I'm like, why are you telling me to do this? I can do this on my own. And so, and a lot of those are, fairly rudimentary forms of AI. As certainly as you read through the article, you realize where this is going and how sophisticated it's gotten. So, I was like, yes, I guess I should pay attention.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we are seeing AI content being created more and more. So do you think that I mean, I'm not familiar with the article, you only shared it with me today, but so do you think, where is this heading? Are we going to be able to sort of say to Siri as a CMO, write me a digital ad with photos of happy people and a call to action for a white paper? And while you're about it, why don't you write the white paper as well?
Please.
Please, yes. Because I did read actually earlier today that apparently English people say please to Siri and Alexa, apparently.
And probably Siri and Alexa in England will not respond unless you do say please. So,
What's the magic word?
That's what we'll say back.
So I've gone off track. But so, do you think we're going to be? And I mean, I've done some research into this as well. And how close do you think we're getting to the full pieces of marketing content being created by these machines?
Well, I mean, your example is complex. So today it won't do the ad and the white paper and the but it is getting it's getting awful close, and a lot of the things that are behind this are I mean, they are fairly recently released pieces of technology. There's this, and then we're going to, apologies, and maybe again, this is another thing to put in the show notes. There's a series of 3-letter acronyms, or in some cases 4, or maybe a few others that you have to navigate through this. So GPT-3, which is actually it's the 3rd generation. There was a GPT, I think 1 and a 2, is generative pre-trained transformer, and so this is the stuff that's able to help or complete a thought, because it goes through a ton of information, internet, other data, whatever data sources you make available to it. And there's, where some of the research is being done is in some facility in Iowa where they just got big server farms, and so they're able to go through billions of models and parameters. And it's good at sort of recognizing and understanding, what you're telling it or requesting of it, and then being able to spit back to you something that is very intelligible. And so it sounds human. So it doesn't. It's not something that you would go, oh, that's obviously was written by an AI engine or a bot or something like that. And there was an example where in this article where they asked the machine, if you will, say compare a dolphin to Brian Eno. So Brian Eno's the musician, composer. A dolphin is the dolphin, and it goes and creates several paragraphs of things that are like, well, here's how they're alike, and here's how they're different.
Right.
And, you read through it, and you're like, well, that's pretty.
Yeah.
That's pretty. You're doing better than probably most people. Certainly, anybody who wasn't familiar with either one of them. But it is. Anyway, it does a remarkable job of coming back and giving you a human-like response. Now, the downside is that it's just going through all of these various resources that it's it can be biased. It can pick up propaganda, it can pick up misinformation, and I guess at its sort of the naked untrained version is just going to give you stuff, which is that's the downside, is that it could be used for it could be used for a lot of irresponsible. Matter of fact, there was a quote from the gentleman, Mr. Johnson, wrote the article, says using it for anything other than parlor tricks would be irresponsible. And he quotes other people like Stephen Hawkins and others saying that if AI is unstoppable, it becomes an intelligence explosion that could lead to human extinction. Elon Musk said it's humanity's biggest existential threat. And so you get all of these warnings. And so, as a matter of fact, Musk and a bunch of others have then they developed this sort of open source AI model called OpenAI, so they're and Elon Musk got out of it for, I guess, because there was some conflicts of interest, but Microsoft and others have gotten involved, and so they're trying to be able to teach the machine so that it prevents it from doing bad things. It prevents it from just creating spam or promoting pseudo drugs or or doing some of the things that we accuse the Russians of doing during our elections. So it's it's a valiant effort to try to rein in and provide some governance for this tool. But governance is only as good as the people who are governing it, and
that's true,
versus the people who aren't.
Well, also with these things, and there's a lot of conversation, isn't there, about AI and machine learning? It's about how it's taught. And I think, to your point, that if you were to point an artificial intelligence content machine at Twitter, for example, God knows what it would come back with.
Or you may ask, that hasn't been done yet.
But also, I've played with some of these tools, and you're absolutely right. You can give it a rough topic, and they can spit out something fairly, generic and banal about a particular topic, can't they? There's no personality in it, obviously, or anything like that, but it will. Right. Right, but which reminds me of a lot of B2B content, to be honest.
Well, that is, so that I think that'll get down to some of our conclusions about this. But the other three-letter acronym AGI, general intelligence, is exactly that problem. Is that it's just, since it's learning from what it's available on the internet or whatever data sources you give it, it's going to reinforce sort of the most bland, vanilla version of content that it's going to find. It's not necessarily going to give you a genuine, unique voice. You can say, please write a poem that sounds like Shakespeare. Please do that, and it'll go do that. But then again, it's still not genuine.
There's no voice in it. So that was GPT-3 you were talking about there, and AGI, artificial general intelligence, and this OpenAI model. What else have we got to look out for in this space?
Well, so the thing that's emerging now and is it's called large language model, and it is, it's just another layer of sophistication on top of these other innovations, where it can kind of recognize, predict, generate human language, based on these large data sets. And, it just does a better job of, if you ask it a question and you want something that's in longer form, more depth, like some of the examples that they quote in the article was explain the Big Bang Theory in a language that an 8-year-old can understand, or write a poem about a French village in the style of Shakespeare, or so that's where you're picking up some more complexity and nuance that where the average person would not necessarily be able to pick up that this is being automatically generated. But you think about the applications. They cite certainly customer service will be transformed. It's like, well, why do I need humans to respond to questions that a knowledge base and an AI engine can answer?
I did get. It's funny. This came up in a conversation this week around product development through my day job, and the use of AI in customer service. Yes, absolutely, it could be replacing humans, but also it enables, because at the moment, if you're in a call center, you've got a very limited time with each customer, so therefore the experience isn't great. But if the AI could do the easy bits, and the humans dealt with the harder problems where somebody needs to go through that conversation and they didn't have that time constraint, then actually the service could be improved. Yeah. And it really reminded me of the early days of web content management, where I did a presentation for a client when we were selling a CMS, and I said it takes away all the drudgery of creating HTML. And the HTML developer in the room went, quite like that. And I don't think we haven't seen web developers being thrown on scrap heap just because CMS came in. So hopefully there's a positive thing with that.
Hopefully, yeah. And that's, and I remember, back when I was at Forrester and I delivered a presentation on kind of future of marketing operations, we delved into AI, and it's like there's just so many examples of where AI enables you to do things that you just weren't even able to do before. So it's not taking your job away. It's just when it comes to tagging content properly on the website or in a content management system, or as having enabling these chatbots, et cetera, that enable people to navigate to the proper spots in a website or get to the right customer service. Person. It's like those are things that are like, oh, thank God we have that. But then it's like so I guess the reason that Ian Bruce probably flagged this, it's like, okay, so if I see it starting to take my job or do my job better or quicker than I can, then where does that lead us? And which is we're kind of talking about what's been where it is today. And so, if you think out a decade, 2 decades with a lot of investment behind it, then you do wonder where it all goes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I like where this apocalyptic idea of, it making us extinct. I'm a bit worried about that, but on the other hand,
we're going to be extinct for other reasons anyway. So.
Yeah, we'll extinct. There's a product called Lately, which I've used, and I've had the CEO on this show before, which grabs long form content and makes it and creates little tweets from.
Oh yeah,
and there's lots of those kinds of tools that are using machine language and AI in order to help you as a marketer to free up, those kinds of jobs. And I use Grammarly all the time, for example, and it's almost like an AI, editor. So it kind of has taken away a little bit of editor's job of my writing, I suppose. But what do you think that we need to do as marketers around this, Jeff? Is this something that's, you said it was in the New York Times on Sunday, right? So this isn't like a trade mag or some obscure mag. This is mainstream.
So therefore, it's making it out to the mainstream.
Yeah. So do you think?
So all the reporters at the New York Times are probably reading it and going, "Oh shit, it's my next job."
Absolutely. It's about them as well. So, but we could talk about the future of journalism is going to be AI. But what do we do as marketers? How do we embrace this?
Well, I think the thing is that and then of course we've often talked about the fact that with our content we need to be authentic. We need to understand what what customers really want and how we could talk. How we should be talking, communicating with them, and that's. And I think I mean, one of the things that I was thinking about as I was reading through this is that, there's so much that's hard to predict. A lot of times, like fashions come out of designers who are observing, what young people are doing, and then they kind of see what might be a trend, and then they start building on that. Like, who would have thought that jeans with holes in them would become a trend? Well, that's probably not something that any automatically or any AI could predict. I don't know. I mean, maybe it could, but I think this is where understanding the customer base and determining what is their style of communications, how they talk. How do we get to understand them more intimately? You do need to stay on top of the trends of the applications. You've got to and see where AI can be an assistance to you as opposed to your foe. But you have to avoid anything that smacks of bland genericized language, because frankly, I think one of the challenges here is that we just become overwhelmed with a sea of communications that drowns out all other voices, and certainly we're frankly we're kind of in that today. When if you really spend a lot of time on the social networks and reading, and it's just like you just get
overwhelming.
It's overwhelming, and so
Well, I mean,
I was just going to say, will customers, I think we need to ask ourselves is, will the customers understand where we've provided the human touch, and how will they understand that, or will it just get drowned out by all of this sea of banality, as I term it?
Absolutely. And I think that when you ask the question, what will we do with AI as marketers? Probably the same as we've done with everything, and bloody ruin it. So, I suspect that it won't be long before the unscrupulous are cranking the handle on their AI machine to spit out tons of content that somehow is much more attractive to the Google algorithm, its own robot that's written for the robots, and we are drowning in the sea of comms, as you say. But perhaps as well, it might be that if this level of intelligence could be used in the other direction, which is to help us curate all this content, right? And to feed us with the good stuff. I mean, it already tries to do that, doesn't it? With the social algorithms, you could call those AI, machine learning, trying to give us the content we're interested in. But then we know what happens with that, in that we lose our curiosity and we end up going down these rabbit holes of stuff that we already know and like, right? So, or confirming our biases or leading us into dreadful places in the internet.
But this is where, I mean, I don't think it wasn't in this article, but was some other things I was reading. Is it still? I mean, it still isn't getting to the sophistication of the human brain to be able to, understand, sort of the universe you're in, and being able to make decisions and to communicate. And so, I think that's the thing, is to, you've got to avoid the sort of either whether it's doing what we always did or doing what we've done before in other companies, just always trying to, keep rethinking about, who is my customer? What do they want? How do I want to talk to them? Where am I going to talk to them? Where am I going to find them? How do I communicate to them that are in ways? I know one of the topics we may touch in the future when you're talking about product led, go to markets is that, maybe I'm communicating them through the very product that they bought from me, or that, so there's just, you need to think out of the box as opposed to, what's my next email campaign?
Right, cool. So if I pick that up correctly, those 4 key recommendations, then stay on top of this stuff. Make sure you're abreast of what's going on with AI as a marketer. Use it to get to know your customers intimately. You were just saying about that. We can use these technologies to get to know our customer better and analyze the content. And then I think we were saying that we wanted to avoid the bland, genericized language, which I described as B2B content, and not to be swayed by this thing, and do the easy thing and try and do the hard stuff and keep the human in it, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it's almost better not to say anything than it is to just contribute to the sea of banality.
Yeah, but I suspect that some of us might, because when we're given a machine, we tend to play with it and send out emails, anyway.
I probably did that yesterday, and
so we've done the weather, we've done our topic, we've had a look at the third effing marketing fundamental. What song are we going to play out with today, Jeff?
Well, by the wonders of AI, there was a song in 2019 that was submitted in Eurovision called "Blue Jeans and Bloody Tears."
Yeah,
and it was quoted as being the unofficial anthem of Eurovision 2019. And if you listen to it, it's comes from the sea of banality, but it is kind of catchy.
and it's completely made by AI. Well, I'll play out with that. I'm unfamiliar with that song. I'll play out with that and include a link to it in the show notes, as all of the other stuff that we talked about, Jeff. And will you be joining me next week to talk about
Yes, I will. I think, and we'll continue on our fundamentals, but we'll probably get back to the fundamentals.
I like it. Have a good week, mate. I'll see you then.
See you later.
Cheers.
Bye.
I'm lost when I'm with you. There's no hesitation in your eyes.
Baby, bye, bye, bye. Oh, bye, bye, bye. Baby, by myself. The stain grows more obvious.
Thank you, Jeff. That was Blue Jeans and Bloody Tears from 2019, created using AI by Sweaty Machines, an Israeli production team who fed hundreds of Eurovision songs, melodies and lyrics into their machine. Then the algorithm produced thousands of new tunes and lines of verse, from which a few musical units were carefully selected and welded into that song that you just heard. Of course, I'll include a link to that and the article we discussed in the show notes. Right. On to this week's guest. Brand Marketing Director Joe Jansen has driven revenue in excess of £20 million per year for multiple food and drinks businesses, including Nestle, Cadbury, Walker's Crisps, Guinness, Foster's Beer, Aptamol and Jameson's Irish Whiskey, by collaborating with the business to drive performance through product innovation and the delivery of strategies that solve their brand's consumer challenges. I'm delighted Joe agreed to join me this week and make her podcasting debut. She's worked with some of my favourite brands, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hi Joe, how are you? Welcome to Rockstar CMO FM. Jolly good. See, there you are. This is your first time on the podcast, and I screw up the intro, so you were right there on point. So, welcome to Rockstar CMO FM. So, Joe, for folks that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Joe Jansen. I am a brand marketing director. My family and I live in London, but you can probably tell I don't have a Londoner's accent. So I originally grew up in Australia, quite different. I grew up in a fine wool merino sheep farm in Australia, which is very different to living in London. Yes. My experience is I've been a food and drinks brand marketer and innovator in FMCG, so fast-moving consumer goods, or some people call it B2C, business to consumers. Other people call it packaged goods, but it's all the same, really. And I've been that for about 25 years. I have worked on some pretty big brands. I think there was a recent IRI top 100 UK brands report that came out recently. When I looked down, I was like, I worked on actually 4 of the 7 top brands. So that's some of the things I've done. And I've also worked on some pretty big-ish alcohol brands, so the likes of Foster's and Guinness and Jameson whiskey, etc. What I do is I help directors of food and drinks brands to drive their revenue, and I do this by actually delivering strategies that solve their brand's consumer challenge. And in my own life, I'm a big believer of a few things. One is to believe in yourself, and you can achieve anything if you actually try. You'll always have your doubters in life. Don't listen to them. Just don't listen to them. And you can do anything if you try. And the other one I'm a big believer in is what I call the 2 H's, which is your health and your happiness. And honestly, they are priceless, and you cannot put a value against them. And they are so, so important. Everything else in life is really materialistic. If you don't have your health, if you don't have your happiness, you're a bit screwed. And I outside of work, I love to travel. So many people have said to me, "Why the hell are you still in the UK all these years later when you come from sunny country?" One of the reasons is that I really do love to travel. I just feel it's a fantastic way to learn different cultures, widen your horizons, just give greater experiences. And whilst I am now a British citizen, I've done the full remit of the British immigration system, the complicated one that it actually is. I still travel on my Australian passport, and one benefit of travelling on your Aussie passport is you get a stamp everywhere you go. And so I've got 3 full passports, which is quite nice to actually have.
Nice.
And I'm really, really grateful that you actually approached me to actually do this. It is my first one, so I hope I do not cock it up. No, I don't think I will. And hopefully today I might say something that enlightens someone who is maybe thinking of going into marketing, or it might just spark someone's thought of actually like,
absolutely. That's what we're here for. So, so Jo, what? So you've had, like you say, you've had a wonderful career with working some wonderful brands, some of my favourites, especially in the drinks industry, Heineken and Diageo and those kind of folks. What inspired you to become a marketer in the first place, having come from your sheep farm?
Yeah. Oh, well, I grew up as a kid. When I was growing up, I loved animals, and I always thought I'd be a vet. I came to realization when I was about 10 that I was really crap when it came to needles and all that sort of stuff. So I was thinking that's not going to be my place. I could actually go. I think I had 2 very creative women in my life that were quite inspiration to me. One was my nan. Bless her, she lived to 100. And then talk about believing in yourself. She always said that she was going to live to 100 and she was going to get a letter from the Queen, and she did. And the other one was my mum. And both of them are really, really creative, really hands-on, can do anything, amazing birthday cakes, sew anything, do anything, etc. So I'm quite creative. But I'm also a bit of a numbers geek, and I love a good number. And I think, I can't say I 100% knew what I wanted to do in life. In Australia, you have to do the degree that you're going to go into. So you it does make you sort of make some decisions at sort of that 16, 17, 18-year-old of like, where am I going? What am I doing? I threw up a few things like, do I go into law? But I did law subjects at uni, but I could always argue both ways. So I was like, well, maybe I'm not great at this. At one stage I thought, do I become an accountant? But I always loved the creative side of things. So what I do love about marketing is that you can balance that real creative side with business acumen, and you can really drive revenue, and it's quite I find it quite satisfying to actually, walk down a supermarket aisle and go, oh, I worked on that. Oh, I launched that. And my kids think it's quite funny when they go, what, mummy, you worked on this? It's like, oh, yes, I did, etc. So, you're a driver of change when you're in marketing, and I do like to drive change. I'm quite curious, so I'm quite I'm always observing people, and I'm a strong believer in we have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth, and we should use those in proportion to how they actually appear on our body. And marketing is, especially in brand-led organizations, you are the heart of the organization, and you are so involved. You're not, we're not sitting there I think some people think we sit there with our colouring in pencils and we're just colouring in all day. That's not marketing. You're working cross-functionally with all different departments, from finance, logistics, all those sorts of ones. Like anything, any job has its pros and its cons. So, a big pro for me is that you can really leave a legacy, and you can, you can really see some of the work you've done. Probably a con of being in marketing is that everyone thinks they're a marketeer, don't they?
True.
Everyone, and I think everyone has an opinion on what marketing should actually do. And I sort of very nice analogy, but I think opinions are a bit like bums. Everyone's got one, and not many of them are very, very pretty. But it's a great area to work in. You're driving change. It's consumer insights, trends, Very, very varied. No day is the same when you're working in marketing.
No, exactly. And when we were when we were chatting about you coming on the show, you talked about solving brands' consumer issues. That sounds related to what you were just saying.
Yeah.
So I really liked when we were chatting. You've talked about putting the consumer at the heart of things.
Yes.
And it helps us solve. And you talked about solving brand issues. Tell us about that.
Yes. So great brands really have consumers at the heart of everything that they actually do. And they have really, really strong insights. And all brands, even the strongest, biggest brands in the world, will have some form of consumer challenge. No brand is perfect, as no human is perfect. And to really, really understand your brands, I really believe that if you put consumers really at the heart of what you do and you have lots of rigor to your thought, you can create really, really powerful insights. And once you have a powerful insight, that is a big changer when it comes to marketing. So, those that actually put insights at the heart of what they do, as I just said, it really does differentiate you. Most organizations will have truckloads of information, facts, figures, anecdotal pieces of commentary, opinions, etc. But they are not insights. They're just facts and figures, etc. Yeah. And I hear so many people in meetings go, "Oh, the insight here is this. Oh, the insight's that." And I think, "Oh, it's not quite. That's not quite the insight." Because what an insight is, it's a really deep understanding of a consumer motivation. And when you understand what motivates consumers, that's a really strong, powerful thing to actually unlock growth. And in marketing, we talk about the 5 W's. We also talk about the 5 I's, the 5 P's. There's lots of I's. Some people argue there's more than 5's. But when you're looking at the 5 W's, so the what, the who, the where, the when, and the why. Yeah. I think, they're all important, but I think many people overlook the why. And when you focus in on the why and why consumers behave the way they actually do, and that will really help you to get to an insight. And the way to get to an insight is to just continuously ask the question, but why? But why? But why? So peel away the layers of the onion, etc. Kids are absolutely fantastic. My two would be up there winning gold medals, I think, for how many times they ask, "But why, mummy? But why?" But if you continuously ask that why, and when you initially ask whys, you might get more functional responses. Yeah. But when you keep going down and you keep asking why, ask it 3, 4, 5 times, etc. They're more likely to get to the emotional responses. And it's those emotional responses that will actually get you to why consumers are actually behaving the way they actually do. And when you get to that level, you've hopefully, or should have, quite a powerful insight. Yeah. And that is a game changer, because that really helps structure your strategy. It really prioritizes the activities that you're actually going against, and you focus everyone on actually solving your brand's consumer issue. And when you're focusing on that, you really do step change performances. So,
So where do these conversations usually start? What's the first why? Is it somebody comes with an idea that we're going to launch this product and this is our message to the product, and then you start on your whys on there?
It can come from anywhere. Like, sometimes, some of the roles that I've done, there've been direct approaches, and I've sort of had this brief where they've gone, we sort of know we've got a problem, but we really don't know what it is. So you can go on, you can go on an insight journey, do it that way. You can do, an idea can come from anywhere. And I think the key thing is just sort of having some rigor of thought that actually goes behind it, and actually rooting everything in what consumers thinking and consumers' motivation, and then from there you can really, really focus on things. I think many organizations sometimes focus on the symptoms of potentially a brand issue, but they don't actually focus on the root cause of it. So when you're focusing on the symptoms, you can do a lot of firefighting, but you're not actually step changing performance, etc. But when you get to the heart of an issue and then you focus there, that's really, really powerful.
So for me, because I come from B2B, so I'm not that au fait with all of B2C. What sort of symptoms is it that you see people responding to when really they should be thinking a little bit deeper than that?
So you can see a scattergun approach might be something that so like trying to do everything, trying to be all to everyone, etc. And when you're trying to be everything to everyone, you're effectively nothing to no one. So, and people be doing lots of little things and not then being able to measure them and see whether they're actually delivering.
Right.
You might see people.
So a lack of focus, really, just responding channel by channel. A lot of
headless chickens running around, going everywhere, doing things, etc. And so you do see that. So you're more likely to see reduced focus, lots of small things leading to nothing. And then sort of going, well, hang on, we've had these discussions years ago and we're still in the same place. When you see discussions going around and around and around, it might mean that there's a lack of focus and a lack of understanding of what your sort of core consumer is. So I love the fifth W of why. I think it is really incredibly powerful. And those businesses that focus on it, I think, make such a step change for it. And I think it also helps you when you focus on your consumer, when you focus on your consumer insight and actually solving your core consumer issue, then when some certain random things slightly come in, we should do this, etc. It's a great sounding board to be able to say, well, does it solve our consumer issue or not? And if it does, then potentially do it. But if it doesn't, then you've got a good reason why not to actually do that. And I think, I love the fifth W of why, because I just think it's very powerful in your professional life, and it's also very, very powerful in your personal life. So for me, my kids are a big part of my why. And big part of why I do things, sort of thing. Now, I'm going to go into a slightly personal topic here, and this is a little sensitive one, etc. And it might be a potential trigger for some people. But I really struggled to actually have kids, and it is linked to the why. So bear with me on this. And I was, for years, etc. It was one part of my life that was eluding me, and reams and reams of flipping testing here and testing there and everything like this. I just came back with what was called unexplained infertility. And I see this in so many women, and I see it so much on, social networks, etc. like this. And I was like, well, that's great in some way. At least there's not a medical reason why. But I was like, why? Why is this happening? What is it, etc. And for me, it ended up being, it took me quite some years to actually work it out, because that was sort of how my body rolled, etc. But actually for me, one of the big reasons why I struggled was because of stress. And I took on too much, was taking on too much in life, trying to be a bit more of a superwoman, etc. on certain things. And that had an impact on my ability to have kids. So once I understood that why, I achieved what I couldn't achieve. But I'm a big fan of the why. The why.
Yeah, it comes up a lot on the show about the why and the Simon Sinek and all that kind of good stuff. So why is a good topic here. We also, when we were preparing for the show, we also discussed one of your other passions, innovation. Yes. And I really like this because I think at the moment where we're looking at marketers' role within the organisation, the fact that marketing and our agencies can play a role in product innovation. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so when I was a little ABM, I say little, I wasn't, when I was young ABM, I remember my marketing director at the time saying to me, do this piece of innovation, Joe, it'll be really good for you. And I was like, I really didn't enjoy it, because there was so much uncertainty with innovation, because, you've got so many moving parts, etc. But to his credit, I did it, I enjoyed it, and actually I've gone on to do a lot of innovation. I think an idea for innovation can come from anywhere. And but coming back to your core brand consumer issue, If you're really, really clear on what that actually is, it really helps with your strategy and then where you actually build growth platforms and how that actually links in. So there's a clear link there if you've got, clear understanding of your consumers, clear insights, what your strategy is, then where you actually build from it. But an idea can come from anywhere. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to actually come from the marketing department. It's probably a bit more likely to, but it's not just 100% that it actually has to. And your agencies and also all people within organisations play quite a pivotal role in actually delivering innovation because, innovation, it won't work and you won't get it to market and you won't succeed with it unless you have a very strong cross-functional team. So that can be everything across from finance, commercial team, insights to supply, logistics, legal, regulatory, nutritional team, etc. But also your agencies can play a really important role as well. And they can play a great role in terms of whether it's from design. You can even have there's innovation agencies. So, some of them are brilliant that you can actually work with on helping you actually do that. Because nobody knows all answers to everything. It's a myth that there's someone that knows all the answers to everything. It's not true. And you've got all different types of innovation. So you've got sort of what I would call tinkering, so just small little tweaky changes. And if I put that on the left-hand side, if you do a linear line, and then right across on the other extreme, you've got like meta changes. So these are like true paradigm shifts. So, medical breakthroughs and smartphones, you'd put smartphones over there because they were absolute game changers in terms of the and then you've got a lot in the middle, sort of, incremental, whether it's new flavor variations or those sorts of things, and you've got sort of more dynamic transformational things. But both internal teams and agency teams can work really, working really, really strong together. And you just get that feel and you just know. I mean, it requires some rigor of thought at the start in terms of where you're going, why you're doing it. The why is really important again in terms of innovation. And lots of innovation, especially in food. Margins in food are not high. They're better in drinks, but they're not mega high margins in food. And so you've got to have rigor of thought again when it comes to innovation and be really clear on all aspects in terms of the insight for the piece of innovation, the financials, the brand visual identity that actually goes with it, whether there's sub-branding or naming associated with it, all the commercial sort of side of it or the logistics side of it. One of the main struggles with innovation is actually making it financially work, because a lot of brands will have, so many brands will have, their original product. They'll have like, say, in drinks you'll have, say, the original brand. So, Jameson Original, say, and, that will be the lion's share of the volume and the profit and the value that actually goes with that. Then to weave innovation in, it's sort of, it's got to have a clear role, that strategic role it plays in your brand, but it can be harder to make innovation financially work because you might not have the economies of scale that you have with one of your original things. So that's where it's really, really important to have differentiated innovation that's incremental to your brand and doesn't do a huge amount of cannibalization. When you're launching stuff that is cannibalizing 50+% of your core brand, that's territory to actually be in, because so incremental, low cannibalization, based on a strong insight, a really strong category story, and retailers really want it, and a product that actually consumers will really love. So agencies, both external agencies are really, really key for innovation. And you just get that feeling like when you're working on innovation, whether something's really going to, you generally got a good feel of whether something's going to actually work, and you have a good feel for your agencies, and all agencies have different strengths, and which ones will be great to actually work with. It's good.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd love to chat more about innovation. I think that's a really interesting area because as marketers, we have lots of data, as you mentioned earlier on, and we can really support that. I think both in terms of B2C and B2B, particularly as technology moves to SaaS. But we're a little over time, so I'm gonna leap to our final question, which is we have a regular feature on the Rockstar CMO called the Rockstar CMO Swim Pool, our portal to hell for overhyped trends, BS, and snake oil from this marketing industry we love. What would you chuck into our pool?
I would chuck into the pool generational labels. So
I love it.
So there's two things that really, like, when I hear people talk about millennials, Generation X, Generation Z, I'm just like, consumers do not think that way. I have never ever considered myself Gen X. I know that I don't know anyone that walks around and says, I'm a millennial, I'm a Gen X, I'm a baby boomer, etc. And when you come back to, really understanding your consumers, you need to think like them, and consumers just don't think that way. And the breadth of age, a millennial, what is between 1981 to 1996? So you're talking people that are sort of between 26 and 41. The things that's going on in your life between a 26-year-old,
I know,
41-year-old, when you look back and you think, like, your life is just so different. Yeah. So that's what I chuck into the pool: generational labels.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. And I think there's a book about value graphics, which is that we should look at values of our audience rather than the age as a better mark of that. So I love the idea of throwing these demographics in.
Put some weights.
That's fantastic. I love it. Put some weights on it. I love it. And Joe, when people spin the dial on the interwebs, where are they going to find you?
They can find me. I'm actually not a mega person in terms of social media, etc. I know that goes against what you should be, etc. But people probably can find me. They can find me on LinkedIn. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn. Really happy to help anyone, have conversations with anyone about things, etc. So, it's thank
Splendid. You. Well, I'll include your LinkedIn link in the show notes. Thank you very much for your time, Joe. I very much enjoyed speaking to you, and I hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you. Thanks again.
Cheers, Joe. Bye-bye. Thank you, Joe. If you liked our conversation, please look out for Joe on LinkedIn. I'll include that link in the show notes, and say hello. It was her first time. Right, it's Friday evening. Time to wind down in the Rockstar CMO virtual bar and find my friend and content marketing guru, Robert Rose, chief troublemaker at the Content Advisory, for a cocktail and a marketing. Good evening, Robert. What are you drinking?
Oh, hello, my friend. Welcome to the bar. Welcome to the end of the week, and welcome to the bar. Tonight, I have, I've got a little Billy Joel playing in the background. Nice. Whether you do or not in the bar is up to you. I know we don't want to run afoul of the copyright police here, but I have a little bit of Billy Joel, so I've got a little New York on my mind at the moment, and so. I have a drink that's called a New York Sour for us this evening, which is actually, interestingly, not invented in New York. It was invented in Chicago, and this was back in the 1880s. And the interesting thing is that it's a classic whiskey sour, which of course we all know and have had on this show before.
We have,
but it is a little different. And the way that it's a little different is that you have a whiskey sour, and I recommend a bourbon here rather than something else. But a bourbon is always good for this. And then you have a little bit of lemon juice. And then when you make you make it like a classic whiskey sour there, And again, it calls for a simple syrup of sugar. I skip that part because I just don't, if you need it to be a little bit of sweetness, add a little honey or something in there, which is always nice. But I don't need that level of sweetness. But then here's the thing. You've made the drink. Now pour in just the tiniest, well, not a tiny bit, but, a little bit of red wine over the top of it.
Wow.
And it forms this layer. The red wine will form this layer over the top, which is just beautiful, by the way. It just makes for a very pretty drink. But it's also surprisingly tasty. So basically, you just, and what you want to do is use a spoon, if you can, to spoon in the red wine so it doesn't sort of, pierce the layer of the whiskey. And you just gently pour it on top, and you will amaze your friends, first of all, with how beautiful this cocktail looks. But then more than that, it becomes a lovely tasting thing as well.
Oh, I love the sound of that. And I think I made the whiskey sour that you did on the show, but I forgot to put any sweet in it because you didn't put the sugars, and that was quite sour. It was delicious, absolutely delicious. And by the way, not many people know this. I don't talk about it very much, but it's actually Billy Joel who's playing the piano music in the background. It's one of his unknown tracks.
Well, yeah, there you go.
So
a little bit of unknown Billy Joel, right? Yeah. Which makes it all the more ironic that we don't know that it actually is Billy Joel. But we're just going to pretend that it is.
Exactly. I mean, that's really what this show is about, isn't it? About transporting us away and pretending. Anyway, as you heard, I'm going to attempt to make this drink with the ingredients on my desktop bar. I've put some ice in. You put ice into that, didn't you?
I did, yes. You make it like a traditional. Make your traditional whiskey sour in there.
Oh, right, cool.
I'm suspecting that you're probably going to have a couple of substitutions in there, but other than that, it's just a straight whiskey sour, and then the wine is spooned in very gently.
All right. So what I've done is I'm using the most English of bourbons, Hendrick's gin. I'm back on the Hendrick's again this week.
Yes, I see. It's a little lighter actually than most bourbons.
Exactly. And what I'm going to spoon in is some tonic that's brought to us by the lovely people at Fever Tree, cucumber tonic water. Now that I've got ads on the show, people might actually think I'm sponsored by Fever Tree. I really should be, shouldn't I?
You should reach out to them. You should have your team of salespeople that I know you employ to reach out to those people.
Yes, I'm surprised they aren't already.
And you should make the call and say, "Don't you know who I am? I am an influencer. I need your influencer department, please."
Absolutely. And I'll send them a photo of me with my influencer duck face standing in front of a bottle of Fever Tree.
That's exactly
I'm
right.
going to give this a go. So I've spooned in, just for the list, I've spooned in some of this lovely tonic water. That is delicious, Robert. I could drink one of these every week. What do we call it?
I suspect you might, yes.
And what do we call it?
Well, we call that the New York Sour. And if your next question is, as I suspect it might be, where are we going to be drinking this lovely thing? We are going to go to New York. Yes, we are going to enjoy a New York, because I have New York on my mind right now, and it just feels like I haven't been in. It feels like I haven't been in years and years and years. And when I think about it, that's true. I have not been to New York in almost 2.5, almost 3 years now. So it's crazy making for me, because I love that city so much. So got to get to New York and just do all the things. # all the things.
All the things. Well, as you know, I used to be based there. We've drunk in New York before.
I know. We've had plenty of time in New York. Yeah.
Yes, I had an office of Times Square. Was living in Connecticut. Came into Grand Central. I mean, there's nothing better than that to get that. vibe,
that's right. That's right.
And I haven't been for even longer, and it's the longest period of time in my whole career since 1996. Just to show my age completely, that I had the longest period in my life where I've not been to America. It's astonishing.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, so you haven't been for years. I haven't been for years. So where are we? Are we really going to do it nice? One of those really nice bars in New York?
We should.
Yeah. So we're sipping these drinks in one of those classy bars. Maybe we've had a steak. What do you think?
I think of yes. Yeah. Oh, and this drink goes very well with a nice steak of some kind.
So the conversation has turned from drinking and to how many years we haven't been in New York to marketing. And what are we going to talk about this week, Robert?
Well, I think this week we're going to talk a little bit about listening. And we often think about. This is something that's been on my mind for, I've been thinking a bit about how we create content. And I don't mean just content marketing like thought leadership or inspiration or entertainment or those kinds of things. I mean full on how a business decides to create marketing and communications content and what we're going to talk about. And what I find is that in so many ways, and actually data shows this, what we do in marketing is we're not listening to customers as much as we are just waiting to speak, right? And it's the classic, active listening idea, right? It's like when you're sitting in that meeting and you're watching on Zoom and someone's presenting, a big presentation and you're sitting there going, wow, that's a lot of data that she just laid out. Do I agree with it? Which statement should I respond to? Oh, I need to sound smart. Should I ask a question now? How about now? Oh, I'm ready now. Oh, I'm ready with an answer. I've got an answer for that. I'm going to write that down. I should say something really cool here to sound smart. I wonder what time the dry cleaner closes. You're doing is just waiting for your opportunity to insert something there for whatever reason it is. And that's marketing in a nutshell, right? I mean, it's, the classic of this is that I just heard about this, but it's something you hear every day where, a customer comes in to the website, they download a white paper, and then they go register for a webinar or something like that. Oh my gosh, the algorithm sees they've done two things. It triggers the conversion algorithm and off it goes to a salesperson. And the salesperson then, basically calls up that consumer who is just trying to understand the space and trying to understand the options available to him or her. And the salesperson goes, how many licenses would you like today? And so we're just waiting to speak. And so what I find is that there is a value in waiting, just listening, just literally listening. And the funny thing is, I've learned this over 30 years of marriage, right? I mean, there are times when you just listen. And you're not there to fix something. You're not there to make it better. You're not there to try and tweak, and all those things. You're just there to listen and to hear things. And that's hard for marketing and or salespeople because our whole job is to listen for the trigger that says, great, now let me help you fix your need or your want. Yeah. And when I think about this, it's, we often think of, oh, yes, what we'll do is we'll employ a technology solution to listen better, right? To be able to deliver a better, answer to our consumers, like personalization, right? We'll put in personalization. Yeah. But personalization is honestly the quintessential waiting to speak, right? It is literally finding just the right amount of information to insert whatever the best response that it has at its fingertips are. Yeah. And that's why personalization is usually so poorly done, even by companies like Amazon, right? It's just enough information to be wrong, right? In other words, you bought this and you bought that and you bought this. Well, we're going to recommend that. Well, I just bought that, and because that's all the, And so, anyway, all of that to say, is there something we can do? And one of the things that I have found really interesting results in is to just change up how we ask questions on our websites or our landing pages or the gates to our thought leadership. For example, polls and surveys. We often use sort of the A, B, C, D, multiple choice on polls and surveys because why? We want to be able to rank and, sort the data by quantitative measures so that we can make some response to it. Yeah. Instead, what if we did a poll survey where everything was just open-ended? Like, just tell us how you're feeling, right?
Yeah.
Or actually going out and doing interviews with customer personas where we're not there to say, hey, listen, what do you think about this interface? And what do you think about this message? Or what do you think about this logo? Instead, we just listen. We just listen to what they have to say. Or, and this is my favorite one to do of late, this is an experiment that I've suggested a couple of times, is that, you know how we gate white papers or ebooks on our websites? And the gating is usually some sort of identifiable piece of, your name, your title, your buying stage, your email address, all these things. What if instead of gating it with that, we literally just gate the white paper with, tell us why you're downloading this. Just like literally type it into a thing. That's the gate.
I love it.
Tell us why you're downloading this paper. Just looking around. I'm trying to get educated. I want to copy it because I'm a competitor. Tell us why. And that gets you the white paper. And just listening can give us so much better insight that can be a valuable exercise as well. And that's what's on my mind.
I love that. And I love that idea that we can incentivize feedback in that way, that instead of, for me, maybe the most useful thing I can get from this person that wants this white paper is their opinion and not their email address.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah,
so you can start to understand how they feel rather than who they are.
Yeah, and I really like that. I mean, that phrase that we're waiting to speak, it certainly sounds like my podcast interview technique. I think that what I like there is you're right. That's what the conversation is that we're listening only just enough in order to tell them something about ourselves. And from a B2B perspective, that's all we do, isn't it? Talk about ourselves.
Well, and the funny thing is, the irony of it all is that personalization engines actually get more accurate the less that they speak and the more that they listen, right? In other words, the more data that is assembled before a piece of content is presented is usually more accurate. So if you sort of run that equation, personalization systems should never, really ever present a piece of content, because the more they listen, the better they'll get. And so, of course, at some point you have to, because that's the whole point of a personalization system, is that it is personalizing. But it's always that question of how much data do you need in order to provide a contextually relevant piece of content to someone in that moment. And the answer is almost always, well, more would be better, right? And so the listening is more is almost always better. But of course, there is a declining rate of return, I suppose, before you actually speak in a marketing sense. But what I think that also shows is that some would be good. Some listening would be good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these days we've got dynamic forms and that kind of thing, right? There's no reason why some of our good stuff, some of our white papers can be gated in the traditional way, and some of it gated in this way. And you can do that split and figure out what's working best. And you may find that actually your message gets spread and heard more. I mean, I fucking hate gates anyway, but it spreads more because you're asking a human question, and it might be a huge relief to them that they don't have to give you their email address.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And sharing that with and this is especially true, for example, where we may already know, or we should already know who they are. How many times have you gone back to a website and you're going for that second white paper, cough, Gartner, cough, and you have to yet put in your email address again. And then what annoys me so much is that when you put in your email address for that second time, they go, oh, welcome back. It's like, no, you don't welcome me back after I identify myself. You welcome me back before I had to put that in. That's called listening. I
love that. Yeah. And also, I think as well, what came into my mind then, because I don't know what you're going to talk about on these things, but what came into my mind then as well is taking this approach to how you look at your data. So, for example, when we look at web analytics, we're typically looking at vanity metrics about us, right? We should be actually looking at that in that same way, is that what is the customer doing and thinking? What can we discern about how they're viewing this and their behavior from a listening perspective, rather than, it took them five pages to get to one of our calls to action. We need to put that call to action somewhere else. Do you see what I mean?
Right.
It's like
we need to make it sooner. Yeah, we need to make it. We need to make it earlier so that we actually, and I mean, we've talked about this before, where we get so wrapped around the axle of trying to quote unquote remove friction that we forget that sometimes friction is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that slowing someone down is a good thing, and it can be both for the business and for the consumer to slow them down a little bit and say, hey, listen, just, take a moment, take a breath and get what you need.
Yeah, have a look around. Yeah, I love it. All right, that's a great thought. Thank you very much, Robert. And I'm loving this drink also. And you outing Billy Joel is playing in the background. That's fantastic. So where might people be able to read your thoughts where you're listening?
Well, they could show up now, which I'm a little more pleased to say now, to go to contentadvisory.net, which is our little hovel on the web, because we've just spruced up the joint a little bit. We've put some new content up. We've gotten, we've cleaned up the navigation a bit. We've added some things that weren't there, and ostensibly just, gotten a little sharper with our website design. We had a little Cobbler's Kids thing going on there for a while, but spent a couple of weekends and got it all shaped up.
Nice. And so will we continue to call it a hovel then? Yes,
of course, because it's not like we upgraded it to a mansion or anything. We just pulled the cobwebs out of the corner is really all we did.
Cool. So that's contentadvisory.net. And when people spin the dial on the interwebs, Robert, where are they going to find you?
Well, they'll currently find me on LinkedIn and Twitter, although if Elon continues his little adventure here, who knows what the hell I'll be on Twitter or not. But currently, yes.
I don't think there'll be a lot of listening going on then when his form of free speech takes grip of Twitter. All right, mate. And will I see you in the bar next week?
Of course.
Excellent. Will I see you then? Thank you, Robert. And that piano music is clearly not Billy Joel, of course, but a chap called Johnny Easton, shared under a Creative Commons license, and you can find a link to it in the show notes. So, that's a wrap on episode 111 of the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast. Thank you for dropping a dime into your podcasting jukebox, selecting our track, and jiving along with us. I've been your host, Ian Truscott. Thanks again to Jeff, Joe, and Robert for sharing their insight. Please say hello, follow their work, and check out all the links in the show notes, which you can find on your favourite podcast app or at rockstarcmo.fm, where you can also find all our previous episodes. So, does the world need another effing marketing podcast? Let us know on the socials, or drop a rating or a review in your favourite podcast app. Or just keep listening. I'm glad you're here. Next week, as you heard, Jeff and Robert will be back, and my guest will be Laurie Jones, CEO of Advocet Communications. And until then, have a great week, and I hope you'll join us here again next week on Rockstar CMO FM.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.